is the lift. See the passage here. It is increasing the horizontality, as well as at the end it is creating a vista kind of an appearance. Vertical space stimulates vertical movement when filled with staircase, lift, or ramp. Any vertical movement this is very important when you are dealing with circulation in a high-rise building. How a cuboid plays an important uh, how a shape is important, or sorry, how form is important in vertical movement. Either it can be cylindrical, for example, of a spiral staircase, in a dogleg staircase, as an example for cuboid and its verticality. Now we'll go to the next line. It will be pyramid. So pyramid is nothing but when you're doing ortho projections of a square, but you are connecting the midpoint and joining all the lines, then it will be a pyramid. Sometimes which can also be compared to a pyramid. It is made up of tapering an inclined surface and gathered together to form an apex, a corner where the whole mass culminates. The directional quality is stronger than of a rectilinear tower. See, for example, consider this great pyramids of Egypt and as well a vertical high-rise tower. See the difference, feel the difference. The direction towards the sky, it emphasizes it has a directional quality, and it is emphasized more in pyramid when compared to a rectilinear tower. So now we'll go to the cylinder. Cylinder is a rounded surface. In far distance, it appears in outline as rectilinear, and as we go nearer, it appears more like circular. See, for example, even when we render, how we differentiate when we are going to draw an elevation, how we differentiate a cylinder from a cuboid vertical tower. We will be rendering at edges, saying that it is circular. It has a circular motion, right? So curvature and circular movement continue alongside a strong vertical movement. The resultant is spiral ramp, and spiral staircases suit the place. As I've already given the example of a spiral staircase for the cylinder. See, when you're designing, you should think your spaces split into forms, then which one suits to the specific function. So understand now. So far what we've seen is the last class and today the forms and its derivatives. Today we'll be seeing the perpetual effects of specific configuration of architectural spaces. We have so many things such as enclosure, internal, external, and continuous spaces, and its relationship and spatial relationships and its types: centralized, linear, radial cluster, grid, built form, and open spaces relationships. So there are different types of spatial organization. One is central, the other one is linear organization, radial organization, cluster, and grid. So see, for grid organization, the best example is Chandigarh city. Now we'll go one by one. Central organization. It is stable and concentrated composition. First, in a central organization, the first point that is emphasized is it is a concentrated composition. It is being done deliberately. It is being focused and it is being done, and it gives the feeling of stability. It consists of numerous secondary spaces that are clustered around a central, dominant, and bigger space. Of course, it will be having secondary spaces, but the important thing is that the secondary spaces are clustered around a central, dominant, and a bigger space. In the following figure, you can see there is a square that is supposed to be the dominant space or the bigger space, and it is centrally focused. It presents secondary spaces that are equal in terms of role, shape, and form, which creates a distribution package that is geometrically regular or two or more axes. For example, we can give the courtyard and the functions that are surrounding a courtyard. Those central organizations whose forms are relatively compact and geometrically regular can be used to establish places in space, term of axial compositions, finally act as a form object inserted into a field or an exactly define spatial volume. See, for example, a small kiosks in a gallery, or all the expos you have, no, these expos that is running in Chennai Trade Center and other conventional centers. See, all clustered spaces will have a central dominant space, and all clusters will be around that central dominant space. So you're creating a place in a space. Okay. Okay, we'll go to the next thing. Linear organization consists essentially a series of spaces. For example, sorry, a series of spaces. For example, these hawkers in T Nagar and our roadside shops, what we have, it has been arranged in a linear fashion. So those spaces can be interconnected directly or be linked through another linear, independent, and distinct space. So it can be interconnected directly or through a corridor space or through another linear, independent, and distinct space. It can all be connected. For example, is a market. Those spaces that are important functionally or symbolically within this organization can take place anywhere in the linear sequence and show their relevance using their size and shape. Generally, it will be of the same size. Sometimes the size and shape may vary. The organization can solve linear different conditions at the site. See, for example, a best example, another best example is the classrooms. A stretch of classrooms connected with the help of a corridor. It can be a straight, segmented, or curved line, and it can develop itself horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Okay, now we'll go to the radial organization. It combines elements of both linear and centralized organization. For example, a mall, a temple, or I mean Baha'i temple, or where you have this radial organization. You have a center point, and it is all arranged in terms of an array. It consists of a dominant central space with many radial linear organizations, while a centralized organization is an introverted scheme that directs to the interior of its space. A radial organization is an extrovert. So always in a central organization, it is introvert. We concentrate on the center by arranging all small things around the center to give emphasis to the center. But whereas in a radial organization, it is an extrovert scheme that escapes from its context. It radiates from its center, giving importance to the center as well the periphery, things placed on the periphery. The central space of radial organization has a regular form, unlikely in centralized organization. Acts as the hub of the linear arms and maintains the formal regularity of the whole organization. This type of spatial organization is used to connect spaces using proximity. It can accommodate in its composition spaces with different sizes, shapes, and functions as long as they relate themselves by proximity and some visual element. The connected spaces can be grouped, gathered around a large area or well-defined spatial form. See, even though it is not centralized, even though it is not radialized, this kind of cluster organization gives us some feeling of wholesome. After the organization is being done, it can be grouped, it can be visualized as a group. Most of the cluster organization, the best example is the slums, the best example is unauthorized construction, where the even though the or it is not well organized, it gives a volume, it gives some sort of a cluster form. Grid organization, as you all know, this is the example of a grid, and the best example is grid iron pattern of any city, and the best example being, for example, Pondicherry, if I'm not wrong, is radial or gridiron. Chandigarh is the best example to have the sectors designed by Le Corbusier, and it has got the gridiron pattern. And the earliest form developed by Chanakya in his township, you have all these kinds of patterns. Probably I can send notes for those extra readings. What is the concept of Chanakya's ancient town planning? He has derived around 8 patterns of organization, and the foremost thing is called as gridiron. It is not called as gridiron, it is something equivalent with gridiron. It consists of forms and spaces whose position in space and their interrelationships are regulated by a type of a plot or a three-dimensional field. It can be created by establishing a regular scheme of points that define the intersections between two groups of parallel lines. Its capacity on organization is a result of its regularity. and continuity that includes the same elements that distributes. One disadvantage or the main disadvantage of a grid organization is when you are dividing into sectors, if you have to reach from one sector to another sector, you have to crisscross, run in a crisscross way compared to a radial organization where two rings can connect to any point with a short distance. But here in a grid organization, shortest distance, for example, you have to move from the leftmost corner square to the rightmost corner square. You have to run through all the grids. Okay, that is the main disadvantage. But the main advantage is you can segregate the sectors. Spatial relationships, space within a space, interlocking spaces, adjacent spaces, space linked by a common space. Space within a space. See, the best example is the trade centers where you have kiosks, different kiosks, that is space within spaces. Interlocking spaces, you have a lobby that is flowing, or you have a dining room that is flowing into the garden, that is an interlocking spaces. You're combining two spaces where there is a spillover. Adjacent spaces, best example is classrooms. Space linked by a common space, once again classrooms, and the space linked by common spaces can be the canteen, can be the corridor, etc. Okay, but with this we are coming to the end of this forms and its derivatives and types of organization. So far, any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now we'll be moving on to the other units where you have to analyze different designs based on whatever we have learnt already. Okay, today we'll see one example and we'll end the class today. Okay, we'll see Guggenheim Museum today. Okay, or you can unmute yourself, only less number of participants. And when I ask you to mute again, you can mute. See, have you all heard of FL? Sorry, 1 minute. Have you all heard of FL, right? I think here there is a mistake. Just hold on for a second. Okay. Any idea about FL, right? You can unmute and answer, ma.
He's a great architect who has designed many buildings, ma'am.
What are his principles? His principles, any idea? He's an architect, really?
No, ma'am. I don't know about those things, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, please just make a, I mean, just give do an extended study of who is an architect, sorry, who is FL, right, and what is his contribution towards architecture. Okay, the best examples where what we know is FL writes falling water. It is made of
Falling.
natural materials and it has been, I mean, it is infused into an existing, I mean, existing stream or something. Okay, now we'll be seeing today Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum. Okay. See, please don't get confused with the Guggenheim Museum or the Bilbo Museum that is being built by Franco Gehry. Okay. You have the idea of Guggenheim Museum about by Franco Gehry, but this is different. Okay. Franco Gehry has a different method of working. I mean, before going into this, I just given a bit of example about Franco Gehry. Franco Gehry's Bilbo Museum was built. I mean, even the Disney Concert Hall was similar to this Bilbo Museum. The Bilbo Museum was actually built for a museum, but after building, the building itself has become a museum. You can see in various movies. I mean, it has been shooted, And what I was about to say is how Franco Gehry works is usually he makes sketches, and those sketches are then fed into CATIA programs. Then you uh, get a 3D model of the sketch, and then depending on the flow of the model, materials are chosen. This is the ideology that has been followed by Franco Gehry. But now today, this is also a Guggenheim museum, but this is being built by FL Wright. Okay, and the building category falls in under museums and exhibit. The museum was the last major product built by FL Wright between 1943, and it was open to the public some 16, I am not wrong, 16 years later in 1959, 6 months after his death, making it one of its longest works in creation, along with one of its most popular projects. Completely contrasting the strict Manhattan city grid. See, for example, as I've already told you, city Manhattan is also a grid. I mean, it is a grid. It follows a grid pattern. Most of the buildings in Manhattan will be cuboid. The organic curves of the museum are a familiar landmark for both art lovers, visitors, and pedestrians alike. So at that time, it stood as a, even today, the organic curves of the building stood as a landmark for all the art lovers, visitors, and pedestrians. The exterior of the museum is a stacked white cylinder of reinforced concrete swirling towards the sky. The museum's dramatic curves of the exterior had an even more stunning effect on the interior. Inside, Wright proposed one grate on a space. Sorry, where I left? On a continuous floor, and his concept was a success. Walking inside, a visitor's first intake in a huge atrium rising 92 feet in height to an expansive glass dome. Along the sides of this atrium is a continuous ramp uncoiling towards 6 stories for more than 1/4 of a mile. See, there's a continuous ramp that is running for more than a mile to connect these 6 floors, that is organic or circular, somewhat circular or ellipsoid in shape, allowing for one floor to flow into another. This is where we can think about this cylindrical vertical movement or the form connecting, the vertical form that is connecting a cylindrical in shape. The ramp also creates a precision in which a visitor experiences the art display. See, the best form of flow is to have a circular pattern, and the continuous ramp that is flowing to all the 6 floors gives us a seamless circulation to seamless vertical circulation to that is connecting all the 6 floors. The design of the museum as one continuous flow with levels of ramps overlooking the open atrium also allowed for the interaction of people on different levels. Generally, you have these kind of ramps in theaters. Although the space within the building is undeniably majestic and building itself is monumental, it was not perfectly successful in terms of function. The curved walls of the interiors were intended so that paintings had to be tilted backward, as on the artist's easel. This was unsuccessful because the paintings were still difficult to display because of the concavity of the wall. You understand? Because of the wall that is progressing, that is having a concave progressing, it is very difficult to put paintings on the wall. Because of this, before its opening, 21 artists signed a letter protesting about their display of work in such a space. See, this is very important. You should think. No, please don't scribble. This is very important. When you see it, why I'm reading out this point is that this whenever you are designing a building, you should also think about the end users and where it should be used and to whose convenience it should be designed. Many critics also argued that the building completes with artwork that is intended to be displayed, and this was a problem that was seriously addressed back then. This is the most spectacular museum interior architecturally in this country, but my job is to show off a magnificent collection to its fullest. Wright also had a problem with the Manhattan's building code administrators who argued with him over structural issues such as the glass dome that has to be reduced in size and redesigned to include concrete ribs that are extensions of the discrete structural pillars on the exterior walls. For example, this is to address the point back then. They had a problem with the massive glass dome, so he has to reduce its size and redesign to include concrete ribs so that it is an extension of the structural pillars on the exterior walls. Probably this might be because of the north light problem. In 1992, the museum built an addition that was designed by Gwathmey Siegel, associate architects that Wright had originally intended. So there was an extension to the original building also. The architects analyzed Wright's original sketches, and from his ideas they created a 10-story limestone tower that had flat walls that were more appropriate for the display of art. See, what you have to understand is initially the building was conceived in 1943. It was built around, it may be, I mean, it has taken to open for the public around 16 years after it has been conceived, and later then there was an addition to the building for because they had a problem in displaying this paintings by the artist. So there was an extension to the building, but that was being built by a different architect, different architects association. Okay, between 2005 and 2008, the museum went under an exterior renovation where 11 coats of paints were removed from the original surface and revealed many cracks due to climatic reasons. This revelation led to extensive research and the testing of potential repair materials as well as the restoration of the exterior. You will be studying maintenance of rehabilitation of structures in higher classes, where you will be studying about how to repair and restore the existing building. So you understand 11 coats of paints were removed from the original surface, then only the revelation of cracks came into picture. Despite the opinion of critics, there is no doubt that Wright's design for the Guggenheim Museum provides a spatial freedom that is unique to its style. It took Wright 700 sketches and 6 sets of working drawings to turn his vision into an extraordinary sculpture of a building overlooking the Central Park, and it is acknowledged as one of the most spatially beautiful international style of works of architecture. You can see the building now. See, this is the ramp that is continuously connecting all the 6 floors together, and this is the central dome, what you are seeing on the leftmost corner of the picture. The first two pictures gives the exterior of the building. So I think this was the glass dome that was being reduced to ribs. This is the model, and the one you are seeing at the back is the 10 towers that has been later added by the architect, the other architectural association. This is the, I mean, here the people can connect talking from each floor to another floor to have all the people connected to the central atrium. That is the idea. And this is the sketch of the door of the building. This is the cross section. In the section, you can see how the ramps are connecting the spaces. These are the sketches. This is the floor plan. Here you can see the display gallery. Since the wall is concave, it is very difficult to hang on the paintings. That was the main problems. Having a circular motion is okay, but having a circular wall has its own problem when you are designing for a gallery. So this was this you can critically take this as a critical analysis of how circular walls are not an ideal example of displaying things. This is the ramp that is connecting all the. See, this is in the higher classes when you're going to design, when you're going to produce your own drawings, you should produce separate drawings such as these sketches to show your horizontal and vertical circulation. Other pictures. Okay. So please switch on your videos and mute yourself for a while. Please, I want everyone to switch on your video and mute yourself.